You grew up believing in happily ever afters. But what if the fairy tales you love were hiding something much darker? What if the magic had a price? And the villains weren't really the bad guys? Today, we unravel the eerie secrets and unsettling truths behind the tiniest character in Disney's magical world. A flicker of light, a burst of glitter, and a soul darker than you remember. This is the haunting truth behind Tinkerbell. And once you see her clearly, you may never follow the pixie dust again. Tinkerbell was never meant to help. The dark origins of Peter Pan's fairy. Part 1. Tinkerbell was never meant to be kind. When you picture Tinkerbell, you probably see a golden trail of pixie dust, a playful smirk, and a twinkling glow that signals mischief, but nothing truly harmful. But in J.M. Barrie's original play and novel, Tinkerbell wasn't the charming mascot Disney turned her into. She was something far more volatile, far more dangerous. In the original text, Tinkerbell is described as jealous, vengeful, violently possessive. She's not a sidekick. She's not even a friend. She tries to have Wendy killed, not out of justice or loyalty, but sheer jealousy. She convinces the Lost Boys that Wendy is an enemy and must be shot down from the sky. No remorse, no guilt, just singular burning emotion. And here's the chilling detail most people forget. Fairies are so small that they can only feel one emotion at a time. Let that sink in. Not kind, not loving, one emotion at a time. That means when Tinkerbell is angry, she's only angry, unfiltered, unrestrained, and untouchable by reason. When she's jealous, the world collapses around that one feeling. There's no space for empathy, no capacity for self-reflection. This isn't whimsical, it's inhuman. She doesn't grow, she doesn't learn, and she doesn't evolve. Because she can't. Tinkerbell isn't just a quirky magical being. She's a being of emotional extremism, a creature of pure impulse. So what does that mean for Peter? It means she wasn't created to help him. She was created to bind him. In a place like Neverland, where no one ages and nothing changes, fairies aren't wish granters. They're enforcers, gatekeepers of the rules, enslaved to the systems that keep Neverland frozen in time. And Tinkerbell? She's the enforcer of Peter's innocence. She is the spark that shields him from adulthood, from emotional depth, from moral consequence. But that protection has a price. Because to keep Peter Pan innocent, she has to destroy everything that threatens to make him grow up. Wendy, the concept of love, even Peter's own memories. Tinkerbell was never meant to guide Peter to freedom. She was built to keep him caged in boyhood, forever. Part 2, the origin of fairies, is not sweet. Forget everything Disney taught you about fairies. In real folklore, especially ancient Celtic and Gaelic tradition, fairies, or fae, were not harmless little helpers. They were not cute. They were not kind. They were feared. Fairies were spirits of the dead. Lost souls caught between worlds. Sometimes cursed humans. Sometimes shapeshifters. Always unpredictable. In Irish and Scottish legends, fae lived in liminal spaces, thresholds between life and death, innocence and corruption. They weren't there to grant wishes. They were there to test you, to trick you, to punish those who forgot the old rules. So let's talk about Tinkerbell's name. Tinker was a term for wandering metalworkers, outsiders, people who lived on the fringes of society, often feared, often mistrusted. In many superstitions, tinkers were associated with bad omens, curses, and unclean spirits. Bell, on the other hand, has deep symbolic meaning across cultures. A bell is a signal, a warning, a toll for the dead. It rings when something passes from one state into another, life into death, innocence into awareness. So put them together, Tinker. Bell, a wandering spirit that arrives when something is about to change, bringing with it the sound of warning. Tinkerbell is not just a fairy. She is a liminal entity, summoned or shaped when Neverland is threatened by transformation. By outsiders, by memory, by Wendy. And what does Tinkerbell do when Wendy arrives? She doesn't greet her, she doesn't guide her, she attacks. Because that's what fairies did in the old stories. They didn't bless new visitors, they punished them. Fairies were territorial. They guarded their worlds with trickery and wrath. And Tinkerbell isn't some glowing friend. She is a guardian spirit, and she sees Wendy not as a guest, but as a corruption, a danger to Peter, a threat to the rules of Neverland. And in Neverland, the one thing fairies fear more than death is change. So when Wendy tries to bring love, maturity, and empathy into Peter's world, Tinkerbell reacts the only way a true fae would, with rage, with jealousy, with violence. She's not malfunctioning. She's not overreacting. She's fulfilling her purpose. Part 3. Tinkerbell's obsession with Peter. At first glance, Tinkerbell seems like Peter Pan's mischievous companion. Tiny, loyal, fiery. She zips around him like a petulant younger sister, always watching, always hovering. But if you pay attention, her attachment to Peter isn't just intense. It's unhealthy, it's territorial, it's obsessive. In every version of the Peter Pan story, Tinkerbell is fixated on him. She follows him everywhere, reacts violently when he shows affection to anyone else. And in some early versions of the play, she even dies for him, willingly. But why would a magical creature, supposedly born from laughter and light, sacrifice herself for a human boy? Not out of love. Not in any way we'd recognize it. Because Tinkerbell isn't Peter's friend. She's bound to him. There's a theory that floats around obscure folklore circles. A theory that changes everything we think we know about her. Tinkerbell isn't a fairy at all. She's a familiar. In traditional magical lore, a familiar is a spirit, sometimes animal, sometimes human-like, that is magically connected to a person, usually a witch or warlock. They protect, they guide, they influence, but they are not independent. They are not free. Familiars are extensions of the soul they're linked to, and that's exactly what Tinkerbell is to Peter. She doesn't follow him because she wants to. She follows him because she's part of him. Think about it. Peter Pan doesn't have parents, doesn't age, doesn't mature. He's pure impulse, imagination, and fear of growing up. Now look at Tinkerbell. She is emotion without control, devotion without reason, and rage without morality. She embodies everything Peter can't face in himself. His jealousy, his possessiveness, his inability to love without control. She acts on what he suppresses. When Peter feels threatened by Wendy but doesn't understand why, Tinkerbell lashes out. When Peter wants attention but doesn't want to admit it, Tinkerbell demands it for him. When Peter wants to stay innocent, childlike, and free of responsibility, Tinkerbell becomes the guardian of that illusion. Because that's her role, not to protect Peter's life, but to protect his fantasy. There's even a darker interpretation. Some scholars believe Tinkerbell is the fractured echo of Peter's own soul, a byproduct of trauma, a child who refused to grow up, and accidentally split off the parts of himself that couldn't be tamed. She isn't just his companion. She's his shadow, the part of him that remembers pain and reacts with rage, the part that clings to Neverland not because it's beautiful, but because it's the only place where his broken pieces are still allowed to play pretend. And like any shadow, she can't exist without him. But if he ever tries to grow up, if he ever truly embraces change, maturity, or love, Tinkerbell's obsession won't let him go. Because when you're bound to someone's innocence, their growth feels like your death. Part 4. Neverland is a place of death. We've been told that Neverland is a paradise, a magical place where children fly, mermaids sing, pirates are clumsy, and no one ever grows up. But let's be honest, if you look closer, really look, Neverland isn't a dream. It's a trap. No one ages. no one remembers how they got there. Time stands still. Pain lingers. And yet, no one leaves. It's not paradise, it's purgatory. In many mythologies, the idea of a timeless place, one unmarked by clocks, growth, or seasons, is a red flag. It signals not a haven for children, but a realm of the dead. A holding place for souls that are lost, unfinished, or refusing to move on. And in that context, Neverland starts to make horrifying sense. The Lost Boys, they don't remember their lives before. They don't know their ages. Some don't even recall their real names. They just are, trapped in a cycle of play, conflict, and forgetting. Which, when you think about it, mirrors the behavior of spirits locked in limbo. Now look at Peter. He's the eternal child, the leader of the lost. But he's not saving them. He's keeping them here. In some versions of the original text, Peter forgets the lost boys after they leave. In others, he kills them when they grow up. Casually, indifferently, like breaking a toy. Because growing up isn't allowed. Growing up is death to him. But here's the twisted irony. In trying to avoid death by refusing maturity, Peter becomes death, the enforcer of stasis, the one who halts all growth, the one who invites children to a world where nothing ever changes, and no one ever heals. And who's the first one to greet newcomers when they arrive? Tinker Bell. She's always there. The first flicker of light, the first voice, the first guide. In many ancient mythologies, small winged creatures aren't just fairies. They're psychopomps, guides of the dead, beings who usher souls from the mortal world into the afterlife, sometimes gentle, sometimes cruel, but always there to escort you across a boundary you can never uncross. And that's exactly what Tinker Bell does. She shows Wendy the way, introduces her to the rules, tests her loyalty, pushes her toward danger. She's not helping Wendy, she's evaluating her, to see if she fits, to see if she belongs, or must be destroyed. Because Tinker Bell isn't a welcoming committee. She's a gatekeeper, and gatekeepers, they don't let you leave. They smile, they sparkle, they pretend to care. But the moment you threaten the balance of their realm, the moment you bring in growth, love, time, or memory, they close the gate behind you, and suddenly, Neverland isn't magical anymore. It's suffocating, it's cold, it's full of echoes and children who can't remember how they died. And standing at the center of it all, hovering, glowing, watching, is Tinker Bell. Not a fairy, not a friend, but the beautiful, dangerous soul who makes sure Peter Pan never remembers who he used to be. Because the moment he does, Neverland dies with him. Part 5, Disney's reinvention and what they hid. When Disney got their hands on Peter Pan, they did what they do best. They polished it, softened it, turned something ancient and unsettling into something marketable. And in doing so, they didn't just sanitize the story, they rewrote reality. Tinker Bell became a logo, a marketing symbol, a glittery mascot of childlike wonder. She flutters across castle spires, dots the I in Disney, lights up fireworks with a flick of her wand. But if you really watch her in the animated film, not the branding, not the parks, the real character is still there. The rage, the jealousy, the willingness to harm. She tries to have Wendy killed. Let's not downplay that. She manipulates the Lost Boys. She flares with fury. She physically attacks other girls. Even the way she moves, fast, sharp, erratic, is more like a wasp than a butterfly. She may glitter, but she's dangerous. And Disney knew that. They didn't change who she was. They just hid her in plain sight. Because what better way to conceal something threatening than to make it cute? But beneath the glitter, the old rules remain. When she's injured, when she's dying, it's not medicine or magic that revives her. It's belief, and not just any belief. It has to be verbal, intentional, a chant, a call, a contract. I do believe in fairies. I do. I do. Every time a child says it, every time you, the viewer, say it, you're not just wishing her well, you're binding yourself to her. In folklore, this is ancient magic. The spoken word, the power of names, the giving of consent. You don't clap your hands to save her. You pledge your energy to her. You bring her back. Stronger, because in that moment you've made an offering, and she accepts. And if you think that's just storytelling, ask yourself this: why is it that out of every character in Peter Pan, Tinkerbell is the one who survived outside the story? Peter fades. Wendy is forgotten. The Lost Boys get rebooted. But Tinkerbell? She multiplies. She becomes a franchise, a toy line, a cinematic universe. They even gave her spin-off movies where she's rebranded as an engineer, a friend, a misunderstood hero. And yet, in every version, her core remains the same. Fierce, possessive, unyielding. You can repackage a spirit all you want. Dress it up in sparkles and pastel wings. But if its origin is older than you, older than your culture, your company, your copyright, then it will always find a way back to its true form. And that form isn't kind, isn't safe, it's powerful, bound to belief, fueled by emotion. Tinkerbell doesn't survive because she's beloved. She survives because we keep feeding her. Every clap, every whispered, "I believe," every spark of nostalgic devotion, it's not just a tribute, it's a ritual, and she's still listening. Part 6, Tinkerbell's final form. Tinkerbell was never meant to last. In early versions of the Peter Pan play, she dies quietly, offstage, not with a scream, not with a goodbye, just a blink of light. Gone. She disappears because no one believes. It's not dramatic, it's eerie. It's a warning: when belief fades, magic dies. But over time, the story changed. Because audiences didn't want to feel the weight of that silence. They wanted a resurrection, a second chance. And so we clapped, we shouted, "I do believe in fairies. I do, I do." And she came back. But here's the unsettling part. In some versions, she doesn't come back the same. She doesn't sparkle. She doesn't giggle. She transforms into light, into rage, into something formless but ever-present. In certain forgotten scripts and folklore adaptations, when Tinkerbell dies, the weather in Neverland begins to change. The skies darken. Storms roll in. Peter becomes unstable, forgetful. He begins lashing out, doubting himself, wandering. Because without Tinkerbell, Peter Pan starts to unravel. She wasn't his sidekick. She was his anchor to magic, to innocence, to stasis. Without her, Neverland can't function. Time creeps back in. Memories start to return. The illusion cracks. In this telling, Tinkerbell's death isn't a tragedy. It's a detachment. She doesn't die. She ascends. She becomes untouchable. A force, a whisper, a flicker of gold in the corner of your eye. She's not in the story anymore. Because she's in you. Because you clapped, you believed, you let her in, and now you carry her. She is the surge of jealousy you can't explain. The possessive instinct that lashes out. The voice that whispers, they don't deserve them, you do. Tinkerbell's final form isn't a fairy. It's a residue, a pattern, an echo of obsessive devotion, forever tied to the part of you that refuses to grow up. And when that part begins to slip, when adulthood creeps in and innocence fades, she doesn't die. She tightens her grip. Because Tinkerbell is not bound by Neverland anymore. She is Neverland. And Neverland was never about magic. It was about control. A beautiful prison built on belief. And once you believe, you can't ever leave. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the forgotten shadows of fairy tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this changed the way you see Tinkerbell. Your support helps us create more content like this. And let us know, which character should we unravel next? Until then, be careful which stories you believe, because behind every fairy tale, there's a truth waiting to escape.